Laugh it up, fuzzball.
You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
So once again, we find ourselves talking about Star Wars on 91 Reasons. That's how the show started, folks. It started with me talking about my memories of Star Wars, and it will continue like that until Star Wars is dead, which, if Disney has its way, it will be sooner rather than later. So, hey, I got to go to Galaxy's Edge last Friday, and I wanted to get this episode up sooner, but man, life just sort of collides with Memorial Day weekend. I had long hours working at Knott's. Josie graduated from 8th grade, and we had to have all the festivities for that. So this is actually the first time I'm sitting down. So I'm going to record this episode, edit it, and get it right up. So I can beat all those other bloggers to the punch. Sure, right? I mean, if you go on Facebook, that's all it is right now, is nothing but Galaxy's Edge posts. And that's the way Disney wants it. So I'm going to throw my log on the fire and contribute. A big thanks to my good friend David. I've known David forever. He's the greatest guy. We've had so many insane adventures together, but nothing like going to Bantu at the Galaxy's Edge. And it was all David who got me in. So thank you, David. And you know what? When I talk about this Galaxy's Edge trip, you can't confuse these two items. The good time I had with Bill and Sylvia, his wife Sylvia, and David, you can't confuse the amazing time I had with my criticisms of the land. They're not connected. I had an amazing day with good friends I've known for a long time. We were talking about the old days, the new days, Star Wars, and we had a great time. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some criticisms on Bantu Galaxy's Edge, so we're just going to have to get to it. And listen, if you don't want the land spoiled, you should be off the internet, because, like I said, every single Facebook post is about Star Wars. Every tweet is about Star Wars. They're either yelling about Trump or talking about Star Wars. That's the world we're in now. You're either angry about Trump or looking forward to Star Wars, or sometimes both. So that's the entire internet today. So if you're listening to this 20 years from now, this is you're at a moment in time where people are angry at the president and happy about the theme park. Angry at the president, happy about the theme park. That's the world we're in. So, again, massive thanks to David. Greatest guy ever. We're going to have him on the show very soon to talk about V, the greatest sci-fi television show to air. It's right up there with Star Trek: The Next Generation and all the other sci-fi shows I've watched. But I have such a soft spot for V, man. Anyways, look, so Dave calls me up and he says, would you like to go to Galaxy's Edge? And I'm like, oh my God. Because, I said on the show, I wasn't going to ask anybody. I'm not that guy, If somebody wants to offer to take me, hey, awesome. I am humbled. I am honored. But I just can't go online and go, hey, does anybody have a free? I can't do that. I'm just not that guy. And no offense to people who can, that's not me. So Dave calls me up and I was like, yes. Now the rub was it's just the one ticket, so I didn't get to take Rachel. And I have to take Rachel very soon because I've heard about it, and I was sad she wasn't with me. But Dave says, how do you want to go? So Friday morning, get picked up about 9:30. And the reason we're going is Disney is testing the virtual queue. As you know, right now, to get into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, you have to go on, well, you can't anymore, they're full, but you had to go online and get a reservation, a time slot, a 4-hour window, and when you arrive at the park, you check in, you get a wristband, and you don't get in until your time. Well, Dave's was different in that they're testing a virtual queue. So we go in, we check in, and you're given a numbered slot. There's no paperwork or anything. It's all on your phone. So Dave's phone now says, you are in group 10. Okay, we're in group 10. This was about 10 a.m. So we'll just walk around. 10, that's pretty low number. We'll just walk around until they let us in. Well, it turned out to be all day. About 4 hours later, Dave got a ping on his phone that said, now boarding. And we got really excited, like, oh, it's happening. But they were only boarding group 1, and that was at 2 o'clock. So I had to go to the Angel game with Rachel Friday night. Angels versus Texas. And I thought, I'm not going to make it. I have to be at the Angel Stadium by X time. So I said, Dave, I hope we make it in. I hope we make it. But we made the most of it. We went on Star Tours, and I love Star Tours. Even if it's the new version. Star Tours is a great ride. It has been a great ride since day one. Unfortunately, Bill called it, and we got the Wookiee planet, which is actually very boring. Other than the Wookiee slamming against the window, it's mostly just a leisurely trip through the trees with not a lot of action. And then we got the Coruscant battle from Sith. But, what are you going to do? It looks great. It's stunning. The thing with Star Tours is that it just looks amazing. It's some of the highest quality special effects you've ever seen. Because nothing on the screen is real. It's all digital compositions of an actor somewhere and a set that they've digitally made and ships and laser bolts. So it's a hodgepodge of 1,000 different effects put together to make a photoreal experience timed to the motion gimbal of the simulator ride that you're on. And hold that information for later because it will be necessary. So we ended up at this new place at Disneyland called the Tropical Hideaway, which is right next to the exit of the Jungle Cruise. And it's where they will send you now if you want a Dole Whip. The Dole Whip stand that you remember for your entire lifetime is now basically only mobile orders. You have to order on your phone, pay for it, then you go pick it up. If you want to just stand online and get one, they see it in the Tropical Hideaway. So Bill wanted a Dole Whip, so we went over to the Tropical Hideaway. Really cool little sit-down place. It's weird that the Tahitian Terrace and Aladdin's Oasis is now an outdoor seating, but hey, in a park that's strapped for space, every space is viable. I get it, and I know why they did it, and it's a really nice addition. So we're sitting there, and I looked over, and I said, David, that woman seems to be mentally ill. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, look at her. She had waited in the line. Now, the line wasn't short. It was a 25-minute line to get this thing. She purchased a Dole float, and she wasn't eating it. She was holding it up to take a picture of it. But this went on probably 15 minutes of waiting for Jungle Cruise boats to go by so she could get the boat in the background and holding the thing up. And I said, why wouldn't you just eat it? Oh, it's an Instagram thing. See, I don't have Instagram. I have very little social media. I don't quite grasp the importance of it personally. Like, I get putting news out and, hey, we had a baby. Oh, awesome. Here's a picture of the baby. I get that. I didn't have that when I had kids. So it's interesting to see, like, you can watch people's kids grow up without ever having met the kid. It's a virtual kid. So he's explaining to me how it works, and I said, well, it's got to be mental illness that you would do that. He goes, no, look around, Jeff. And I looked around, and there were at least 5 other people, men and women, taking photos of food they had no intention of eating. I find that very strange. So I will put it to you this way, because I don't understand it. The dopamine hit you get in your brain from getting a like from a stranger on a picture, is that equal to the physical sensation you would get of actually just sitting down and eating the treat instead of taking a picture of it? Because by the time she finished with her photo shoot, it was mush. It was going right in the trash. So I just find this odd, but Again, I'm an old curmudgeon. I don't understand a lot of this stuff. Pictures of food do nothing for me. There's an old Simpsons joke where Bart's helping this lady, and she lets him look at a photo album of pictures of cakes. And he goes, "Don't you have any real cake?" And she goes, "No, I'm diabetic. I only collect pictures of cakes." And they're just looking at pictures of cakes. Now, the Simpsons did that 20 plus years ago. So maybe they nailed Instagram like they nailed so many other things. But I don't get it. We went on Indiana Jones, got all the way to the room where the movie is playing, and the fire alarm went off. Please exit the building. There is a fire in the building. And for a minute, everybody just stood there not doing anything. And finally, this cast member comes out and she goes, "Folks, we're exiting." We're not going to get on the ride. No, there's a fire, dummy. Oh, because in Disney, you just suspend all of that. So we walked out. We didn't even get to go on it. So we decided at that point to just we watched the counter jump to 8. It went from 1 to 3 to 4 to 8, something like that. David probably correct me, but it jumped pretty quick. And we thought, let's just go over to the land. So we headed over. What used to be the Big Thunder smoking area is now the entrance to Galaxy's Edge. And because it's cast member preview, it's not open to the public, they had a battalion of cast members blocking the entrance. You couldn't get near, and the entrance is far down the path. And they had 2 different checkpoints. So we're just hanging out by the fence, waiting for 8 to become 9 to become 10, right? And I'll tell you what, I've worked at a theme park 25 years. I even worked at Disneyland for 3. Everything I do is geared towards guest experience, guest service, making people feel welcome, treating them great because they pay our paychecks. That the guest pays our paychecks, so you treat people great. Occasionally there are issues, and you bend over backwards to fix the problem for the guest, but you never go out into the park looking to create a guest concern. You just don't, because it ruins your day, and it's just not productive. So I watched a cast member come down the path. He came from the Fantasyland direction, and he walked up to the people who were standing in front of the land, and he yelled at them to get off the fence. Get off the fence! You can't sit on the fence! Okay, can't sit on the fence. Well, there's no bench there. And then he stopped, and he looked at us, and he said, "If you don't have a time, or your time isn't here, you need to not stand here. You need to go enjoy the rest of the park and not stand here." And I turned to David, and I said, "Dave, out of respect for you, I'm not going to say anything. But if I was a paying guest, and that guy talked to me that way, and told me to leave, in a theme park where you can virtually stand anywhere you want, I would have tore his head off and asked for a supervisor." You just don't talk to people like that. You don't yell at them. You walk over and you go, "Hi, folks, could you please get off the fence? Yeah, it won't support your weight. It's just for decoration." And then, "Hey, do you have a time today?" Oh, cool. You're group 12? Well, we're only on group 9. So if you could just maybe hang out somewhere else, or Fantasyland's not that busy right now. Oh, cool. No, he just yelled at everybody, told them how it was going to be. And then he took his place like in the ranks of the guarding the land. And I thought, wow, that guy, that's a guest concern waiting to happen. So finally the number came up, 10. We ran to the entrance. We're so excited. It's Star Wars land, man. And guy checks us in, and then they give me a little gray bag. It looks like a bag. If you've ever worked retail, you know how you put your money in that bank bag and you pull a little tab and then you fold it over to glue it together to make sure the money doesn't come out? It was one of those, but for your phone. And it was gray. You couldn't see through it. It was not clear. It was solid gray. And okay, there's a phone picture embargo. You can't take any photos in the land. And I thought, hey, these are the rules. Oh my God, am I a rule follower? Isn't that a weird thing to know about yourself? I'm like Lisa Simpson, man. I need rules. What are the rules? I'm not a rule breaker. I'm not a rebel. Whatever the rules are, I will follow them. Unless they're draconian or they're not kosher, right? But, hey, to get in the land, you got to put your phone in the bag. So I'm going to put my phone in the bag. The next checkpoint, the guy says, please hold your bag upside down. And it took me a second. I'm like, oh, you have to hold your bag upside down because if you didn't fully seal it, your phone's going to fall out, and no one's going to do that to their phone. So I held it upside down like those old commercials where they would put their food in Ziploc bags and then shake it upside down. I mean, that's a really obscure reference, but I spent a lot of my youth watching television. So finally, we're at the tunnel. And we're going in, and me and Bill and David and his wife and Bill's wife Sylvia were just ecstatic. We made it, and it was about 3:30, I think, when we finally got in, somewhere around there. I don't really know because I don't wear a wristwatch, and I couldn't look at my phone, so I don't know what time it was. So you go through the long tunnel, and I know somebody at D23 said, well, the tunnel is like the crawl. It's the crawl to get you in, which is really weird. It's really just to get you onto the train tracks. I get it, I'm aware of, how things are related to each other spatially. So we go in, and the first impression of it is it's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. The last land they opened at Disneyland was Toontown, and Toontown was like an afterthought, like, oh, Toontown, yeah. Is it cool? Yeah, we're already done. Oh, and Toontown's great. It's really small. It's just a place to stick the Roger Rabbit ride and a few meet and greets, But this Star Wars land is huge. So, what do? We looked around and you're overwhelmed because you're in Star Wars land. You're at Galaxy's Edge, and we see a couple of stormtroopers, First Order stormtroopers. We thought, let's just go. So we went up the steps, and the first thing I saw, and David pointed it out to me, was the pod racer engine that cooks the meat for one of the restaurants. And it's being manned by a robot called 8D8, the torture droid from Jabba's palace. And I took a long look at it, and I started laughing, because it's so ridiculous that if you're going to steal, you would steal from Phantom Menace. I mean, unless you know it's a pod racing engine, you wouldn't really know. It just looks like a Star Wars version of a food cooker, right? It's all a prop, though. Like, if you buy food at Bengal Barbecue, their oven is like a tree, but they cook it somewhere else and the tree keeps it warm. But the illusion is that it's coming out of the tree and it's all rustic and you're on the island, you're in the jungle or whatever. It's very convincing. This is a fake prop with fake food spinning in a circle like animals on a spit, and then across the way is where you order your food. I have to preface this by saying the line everywhere was long, even though it was a cast member preview and the place really wasn't that busy. There were lines for everything. That's just human nature. So we continued down that path through what's the bazaar area, where all the little stalls are, the little shops. And I have to say, I was really impressed. It looked really amazing. It was very Star Wars-esque. It's a noble effort to change the way theme park retail looks. It didn't look like stores. It looked like a swap meet. It looked like something you'd see on The Amazing Race, where you're racing through this Turkish market. That's what it looked like. And it's very convincing. Now, that being said, everything I saw was incredibly overpriced. I picked up a little small, about the size of your hand, wooden Millennium Falcon, $20. It looked to me like it should have been about 8 or 9, but it was 20, and everything was priced accordingly. Very expensive. And some of the choices are odd. For every good choice, like there's a moisture evaporator personal fan with, your spray bottle. That's a clever idea. I dig that. Not for $25. But there's also, for one of those, there's a instrument from the Cantina Band. And I don't know what kid wants to be one of the Butthead Cantina members from the Figure and Dan Band. I have no idea. And when you find out that the canon name for them is jizz whalers, maybe you really don't want it. But I digress. So we did that. It was really cool. They have a little stall, and there's a lot of immersive decorations, which are really cool, which I walked up and they had the blue speeder that's in the Solo movie. I don't know anybody that saw the Solo movie, but he drives a blue land speeder in it. They had a miniature one, like child size, and I was like, oh, that's, I have a child size DeLorean in my living room, so I like the child size thing. I mean, it's really cool. It wasn't for sale, and I couldn't take a picture of it, but I saw it nonetheless. So we ended up out the other end of the bazaar area, and we found ourselves on a winding path that was longer than I could imagine, and nothing on it. No, I'm used. I guess because I'm a theme park guy, I'm used to popcorn carts, churro carts, drink carts, carts of people selling stuff. There's none of that there. There are speakers set up to make noises like there's something going on in the jungle. And everybody keeps talking about the noise of spaceships coming in and out, but honestly, I never heard any of it. But the path reminded me of something you'd see in like a condo community. Oh, it's the winding path to the pool. Oh, cool. Bring a towel. It winds around, and at that point, we saw Ray walking towards us. A character, a cast member portraying Ray. I thought, oh, this will be cool. This will be our first character interaction in Galaxy's Edge. And it was not to be. I guess she had to go on a break or something, because she looked at us and just kept going. She didn't engage us in any way. She didn't ask us to join the resistance. She didn't say she was looking. I mean, there are a million things you could say as a character, even like a little tiny thing that would set the scene but allow you to keep moving. She didn't go, good, you're here. I have to go. But the stormtrooper, nothing. And I thought, well, there's a missed opportunity, especially during the previews when you're really supposed to be amped to do your job because the real job hasn't started. It's not flooded with tourists. These are cast members, and you can play a little more, maybe. Nothing. So that path ended at what's going to be the entrance to the big ride, the e-ticket ride. Rise of the Resistance, I think it's called. It had a cool, very Hoth-looking turret. It even had a Hoth-looking board, like the one General Riken stands in front of, that has all the lines on it, and that girl goes, ion control, fire. It looked like that. Really clever, really good looking. 2 cast members were standing there, and we walked up. They were very clear. It's not open yet. And we're like, no, we know it's not open yet. We're just looking at it. It's not open yet. We know that. We're just checking out the scenery. Okay, cool. So across from that is a full-size X-Wing fighter. Really cool. It's not a Luke Skywalker fighter. It's a Poe Dameron Blue fighter, but it is an X-Wing nonetheless. The only problem is that it's elevated on a platform, so it's there and you can see it, but you can't get anywhere near it. Across from that is a full-size A-Wing, which, for a nerd like me who has such an affinity for that vehicle because it was the last Star Wars toy I ever bought in the original line. I got it at KB Toys for $4.99, and a decade later I sold it for $500 when they announced that the reissue was coming out. And then I bought the new one for $14.99. But the A-Wing is such a cool ship. It's not really iconic. A lot of fans who are not deep into Star Wars may not even recognize it, but the X-Wing is very iconic. So we took our picture in front of these with the Disney photographers. Those are photos that we just got today because of the embargo. And then they do a little thing where Chewbacca and this Resistance girl go up to the X-Wing, and Chewie pretends to fix it, and then the X-Wing sort of starts up, and everybody cheers because he fixed it, and then it's over with, and then he leaves. He didn't take pictures with anybody. He didn't interact with anybody. His hair looked great. We all comment on how great Chewie looked. We thought, okay, it's cool, but the land to what we saw. Now, it may be different. It didn't connect back around, so we had to go back the way we came, because when we took that left to the pod racer engine, I totally didn't even see straight ahead was the Millennium Falcon. Now, if you listen to my other episode, this is all I care about. Original trilogy was my childhood. It's what I grew up on. And seeing the Falcon in the distance and knowing that it's up there, me, Dave, and Bill, Sylvia, we walked up like we were going to church, man. We took our time, and when we got there, it looked like we were going to cry. I mean, I was very emotional. I have dreamed of seeing the full-size Falcon ever since I saw the movie, ever since I saw the trading cards of the set that they built in Elstree of the Falcon. You know the Falcon, when Luke goes, "What a hunk of junk! What a piece of junk!" That scene is the same Falcon that later they're coming down the gantry on the Death Star with the scanning crew. All they did was redress the set. So the Falcon parked at Mos Eisley is also the same Falcon parked on the Death Star with set changes. When I discovered that as a kid, it blew my mind. Movie magic. But I knew that you're never going to get to it. They're never going to build the Falcon anywhere. And when Star Tours opened, all they built was the X-Wing for the gift shop. Like a half scale. And we always thought, like, why didn't they build the Falcon for Disneyland? It was a Lucas thing, I guess. But they built it now. And seeing it was the fulfillment of a childhood dream. So many years in the making. Like, it was really a moment, man. The Millennium Falcon. And, the three dorky guys that we are, we quoted all the lines. We looked at it. We studied it. We stared at it. We couldn't believe it was real. And then we got in line for the ride, the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. And the queue for that is quite involved. But you do get to see the Falcon from the ground level, and then you go up a level, and you can look out the window and actually look on it. And I think it was Garrison Keillor who said words to the effect that a woman in a bikini is like a gun. No matter what you do, you're aware that it's in the room or that she's in the room, right? I'm sure I got it wrong, but nothing mattered except staring at that Falcon. I stared at it, and I stared at it, and I squinted to see if maybe somebody had written Kenner on it, because that's my dream. And when you finally get into the main queue of the ride, you go by a repair bay, and you see equipment, and somebody's working on a big engine. You don't see anybody. And they're talking over the loudspeaker that somebody named Hondo is going to be upset if it's not fixed. The queue is beautiful. It's impressive. But it doesn't mean anything. We don't know who these people are. We have no idea who these people are. And when you finally get to the main room of the queue to meet Hondo himself, he's an impressive, state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line audio animatronic. But it's a character that appeared in an episode of the Clone Wars cartoon a decade ago. Hit a figure a decade ago. They plucked him out of the continuity to be the star of this ride, but we don't know who he is. You know what I mean? We don't know who he is. It'd be as if they made great moments with Mr. Taft. You know what I mean? Like if they made, we go to great moments with Mr. Lincoln because Abraham Lincoln is arguably the most famous president of all time. When you list off a handful, he is near the top or at the top. We don't go, oh my God, great moments with Grover Cleveland, right? We don't do that. You cut to the chase and you give people something they can hang on to. Hondo is a character that I don't even know. I don't care about. I have no affinity for him. And I don't understand why he was the one they picked, other than he fit the bill from the character roster. They were like, well, which character could run a smuggling company for the resistance? Well, this guy could. Oh, okay. But the people don't know him. They'll get to know him. They didn't know Captain Rex either. Okay, but see, Captain Rex, when Star Tours opened, you get sympathy for him because it's his first flight, like you. He doesn't know what he's doing. Well, I sympathize with this guy because I don't know what's going to happen, right? So, Hondo welcomes you. Oh, welcome. You will be my new pilots, and we will fly the Millennium Falcon. And then behind him, there's a screen where you can see the Falcon flying in, which was really weird because they went to all this trouble. They built the Falcon right out front. You don't go up the gantry way of it. They don't try to fool you into believing you're going on to that Falcon, which I thought was really strange. There's a disconnect between the Falcon outside and the ride that you're going on, which, that's weird, right? I thought we're getting on that Falcon. So that when, I thought, okay, and again, review the movie you got, Jeff, not the one you wanted. Review the ride you got, not the ride you wanted. Right? But I thought when the cockpit window opened, when the lights came on, we would see like a fake version of Bantu out the window with like guests walking around because we're going to take off from there. It's not that. You're in another spot. The Falcon lands behind him, and for some reason it's being flown by Chewbacca, who has no other part in the ride at all. And he goes, "The Falcon is just landing with Chewbacca. You will get on board, and you will work for me, and we will get hyperfuel, the coaxium." And he goes on and on and on. And I know I preface everything by saying this is a cast member preview. So any of the problems I experienced will probably be fixed by the time the average guest gets in. The cast member previews are for that reason. Work out the bugs before the guests get here. Fix it before it's a problem. How do we make it better? So if I mention stuff and you go and they don't have it, it's because they fixed it. That could be the reason. So the room we're in then cues into boarding, somewhat boarding the Falcon. You never go up the like I said, you never go up the gantry with the gangplank. You're never quite certain where you are, other than it felt kind of like an airport, right? But you stand there because they go, "Let's go, folks," and Hondo takes a break, and then he starts over again before you've left the room. The Falcon is just landing. I'm like, that's bad timing, folks. You have to get me out of here before he starts over, or the illusion of him being a real person is destroyed. But again, I chalked that up to, we'll fix it in post. We'll figure it out. So you wind around a few more corridors, and then folks, I had a moment. You enter the main room of the Millennium Falcon. We were blown away. It looks just like the movie. They have the little sick bay where Luke lays after he gets his hand cut off in Empire. They have the chessboard where R2 played Chewbacca. They have the area where Luke was taught with the training helmet to fight the remote. And you're in there for a few minutes. You're in there long enough to take a few pictures. It's a very smart move, Disney-wise, because you're there to take photos. And we weren't allowed photos, right, because our phones are in bags. But the three guys, we sat at the table. Sylvia joined us. We just sat there, just drinking it in for a moment. Oh, my God. This is all I've ever wanted. All I've ever wanted was to sit on the Millennium Falcon. And they delivered. Seeing it outside was amazing, and then being in it, quote unquote, in it, was astounding. Oh my God. And then they line you up to go on the ride, and they give you a cardboard card that signifies your seating arrangement there's a pilot, a gunner, and an engineer. Two rows of three. And they give you the card so that people aren't throttling each other. Once word gets out of, where you sit, everybody's going to want to be a pilot because that's the front seat. Nobody's in front of you. You get to physically control the vehicle to some degree. But they give you a card, and human nature is You give them a card, and that's theirs. That's their spot in the ride. And if you want to trade, you can. But if you don't, it's yours. I totally get it. It's all psychological. It's very slick, very smart, because it takes the argument out of it. I totally get why they do it. It's genius. So you go in, and there's one last video screen of Hondo while you stand on a brass marker of where you're supposed to sit. Another clear indication of this is where you sit on the ride. Don't run to the front seat. You are an engineer. You're in the back. That's where I was. The Hondo on the screen is an actor, so it doesn't really match up to the robot we just saw, which is bizarre to me. Maybe we'll find out later it is a robot. I don't know, but it looked like an actor to me. The hallway's interesting. You're in there for a few minutes, so I was able to study it. The monitor is on a wall that's bare, where you can see all the wires in it and what look like insulation. Pretty cool. These white panels all over the ceiling and walls were worn and battle damaged, and it didn't look like it had been cast that way. It really looked as if they built this, and then somebody went in and roughed it up by hand. And that's pretty impressive for a hallway that is just a transition hallway. It was pretty neat. Well, then the door opens. The other guests who were just on the ride get off. They'll have poker faces because nobody's trying to spoil it for each other. And then we walked onto the Falcon cockpit. And again, these are indelible childhood moments of fantasy and dreams and illusion made real. And I looked at Bill, looked at Dave, and I was like, we made it. Oh my God, we made it. We sat in our seats, and you have to buckle up, of course, and the ride operator closed the door, and I started banging on it like Hannah. I go, she'll hold together. Hear me, baby? Hold together. Like, just everybody's doing the lines. Why? It's Han Solo's ship. This is like borrowing your dad's car. You want to be your dad. I wanted to be Han Solo. This Hondo crap is for the birds, man. I want Han Solo, Chewbacca, Boba Fett. I get it. And here it is in a nutshell, folks. It is painful to realize you are not the target audience anymore. Everybody wants to believe the world is their oyster and is catered to them, but Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is geared towards younger people who really like the new Star Wars movies, because they don't reference or pay homage at all to the original trilogy. There's very little. There's Salacious Crumb. There's the Falcon, but it's the Force Awakens Falcon. Hondo is not from the movie. He may be a weak way, but he's not from the movies. And it is a painful realization that you are no longer who the advertisers are aiming at. Because I've been the advertiser aimed for half my life. And now I'm not. It's not aimed at me. That's sobering, man. I am old. I'm cruising to 50. When the hell did this happen? And why wasn't I told? So the lights go out and the ride starts, and everybody's got a job to do. The pilots are actually physically affecting the movement of the vehicle. The gunners are shooting bad guys, and the engineers are supposed to shoot a harpoon cable. So the plot of it is you have to go steal fuel, which to me is absurd, because up until Last Jedi, no one ever mentioned fuel in the Star Wars universe. Nobody ever had to stop for gas. Nobody ever ran out of fuel. It just wasn't part of the equation. It was different problems. It wasn't real world problems. So you have to steal fuel, which is You're working for a crime syndicate, you're flying the Falcon, and you're stealing fuel. That's the plot of Solo, folks. For those of you that didn't see it, that is literally the plot of the Solo movie. And why the Imagineers hung their hat on a movie that bombed. And I know this has been in production probably longer than anything. And they were like, well, this is now canon. Ships needing fuel is now canon in the Star Wars universe. So here's what you're up to. I mean, you could have been out to rescue somebody. You could have been out to blow up an outpost. Instead, we're stealing a big... Well, this is such a bad reference. The tube that the ooze comes in, the mutagen ooze comes in, that turned the turtles into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? That's what it looks like, a big giant one of those. So, you fly out of Bantu. When the lights come on, the initial takeoff from Bantu was pretty cool. And I turned to Bill and I went, are you kidding me? And we're taking off and going to hyperspace, and then the plot sets in, and here's the biggest problem I had with it. First off, the pushing buttons thing is lame, because it takes your eyes off the screen. And when you take your eyes off the screen, you're out of... I don't need it to be immersive like that. I'm okay just riding a ride. Again, I ain't the target audience anymore. Young people won't ride it unless they're playing an active part in it. Really? I have to be shooting something or doing something? I can't just ride in the Millennium friggin' Falcon? No, you have to be doing something. So you're supposed to, whenever these buttons light up, push them. So all I did was watch the movie and push the buttons all at once with my hand. I never looked at the buttons. I don't care about the buttons. I ended up getting 75% because apparently the ride even keeps score for some reason. Okay, remember how I said Star Tours looks photoreal? Because the path of the ship that you're on never changes. So the images are fully rendered because you only see them from that angle. Because of the Falcon's ability to move left and right and up and down, the images on the screen are not fully rendered because they're being rendered as you fly based on your movement. So guess what? They're not photoreal. It looked like a PlayStation cutscene. The stuff on where, I don't know where we went. It wasn't Coruscant. I don't know where it was. But we're chasing a train. The train from Solo, we're chasing it, and we're shooting it, and we're getting the fuel, and whatever. But it didn't look crisp. It looked like it was being rendered in real time. Have you ever seen Crush? Crush renders in real time. Crush is a predetermined set of movements that the operator is directing it to go based on the audience's questions. So there's a little bit of lag, but fuzziness to the edges because they're being created as we go. And that's the problem that this one has. First off, the plot of it's lame. I don't care about fuel. I got enough problems putting gas in my car that I don't need to go on the Millennium friggin' Falcon and worry about gas. And second, it ain't crisp because we're being rendered in real time. There is a space-themed Star Wars movie that uses fuel, and it's called Spaceballs. And the fuel is liquid Schwartz. So that's all I could think of was we were out to get the liquid Schwartz for Hondo. And here's the other thing, and this is my main issue with the ride. There's an old documentary called From Star Wars to Jedi, The Making of a Saga. It's narrated by Mark Hamill. It is fantastic. I've watched it 50 times because it came on, I think it was on PBS when it first aired. Then it was on tape, and I got the tape, and I watched it a lot. And it's the full making of Return of the Jedi. It's a great movie. But it does have a moment where Mark Hamill talks about Lucas's little moments in the film where sometimes it's okay to just bask in the beauty of things. And then they show the Falcon flying through Cloud City, and it's beautiful. It's dusk, it's sunset, the Falcon is flying, and I know it's a model, I know it's not real, but my imagination soars with it. And that's the issue I have with Smuggler's Run is that it's so frenetic and so fast that you're never, you get 5 seconds at the top of it to really enjoy being aboard the Falcon, and the rest of it is a screwball paced, get it done as fast as you can, faster, let's go, because otherwise we'll lose the audience. And that's not the case. That is not the case. And the other big issue is, if you remember the first Star Tours, and even the one with C-3PO, but Captain Rex was there to elevate the situation. He'd go, comets, comets, and then there's comets. But he didn't say, we're going into the comet, and now we're turning left, and we're going to dive. He doesn't do all that. He screams and yells and pushes the action forward. And the problem with Smuggler's Run is that Hondo talks the entire ride. He doesn't shut up. Take off from Bantu. Now go forward. Turn right. Move ahead. Try to deflect it. It's not too late. To whip it. Whip it good. And he goes, now fire. Now shoot the harpoons. Get the coaxium. All right, we have the coaxium. Go back to bed. Like, dude, shut up. You told us what we're supposed to do. Let us do it. It's like if the Google Maps app wouldn't shut up ever. Turn right at the light. I said turn right. Turning right. You are turned right. Turn left. Turning left. You have, okay, turn right. I got it. Let's do it. Let's go. Get it. Okay, here we go. Somebody shut this guy up. So, it wasn't, nothing, very little in life lives up to hype. The Smuggler's Run ride did not live up to it. It's a fun ride, but it's not great. It's not groundbreaking. It's made for another audience. I totally get that. It's not made for me. It's not original trilogy. It's not even new trilogy. It's just side mission referencing stuff from Last Jedi and Solo. Okay, that's what you want to make. Okay. And then the weirdest part was the exit is quite long with no music. The exit tunnel was completely silent. I turned to David and Bill and I said, where's the music? Star Tours ends with a fanfare. You've done it. This one just like, okay, that way out. Oh, okay, time to go. And then you left. But, what are you going to do? We walked out front. We got our picture taken in front of the Falcon from the Disney photographers. But I noticed there was a lot of people just standing around. Because without the Rise of the Resistance ride, there ain't much to do in Galaxy's Edge. Well, unless you have really deep pockets. I didn't do the lightsaber thing because it's $215 for a lightsaber. I can't afford that. We went into the Imperial shop. They had I saw Captain Rex, the doll I wanted. It's a robot that's a Bluetooth speaker and has Paul Rubin's voice, but it's $150. And even with David's cast member discount, I can't afford it. It's all very high end. They had a $25,000 R2 unit. They had a $7,000 suit of Stormtrooper armor. It's all very expensive. We walked by the cantina. Can't get in the cantina. There's only 6 tables and a bar, and the line was an hour and a half with a 2-drink minimum. Now, after I left, the group I was with got to go in and said it was pretty cool, but I didn't get to go in. The line is too long. I didn't get to go to the restaurant. I just didn't have time. A lot of it was based on time. I totally get that. We did try the blue milk. David was kind enough to buy a blue and a green milk for us to sip and to sample. And this is where, for the first time, I saw somebody. It was one of the guests, who I assume was a cast member, who said, "Oh, Bright Suns," and the person serving went, "What? What?" didn't even repeat it back. So the blue milk is advertised as a plant-based rice milk drink, which makes it a soy horchata. It was okay. It wasn't mind-blowing. When I watch Star Wars, I will not imagine that this is what Luke is drinking. Luke is drinking blue milk. It's milk that's, colored blue. It's not an exotic drink of any kind. It's milk. The one they serve in the park is like a fancy Starbucks drink in a smaller cup for $8. It's about it's like a courtesy cup you get somewhere to put water in. The cup was not themed. I was really disappointed. The drink was okay. They enjoyed it. I was like, okay, I wouldn't buy it. I said, all things being equal, I'd rather have a Starbucks. They have a Star Wars Bucks in Galaxy's Edge. Give them time. So after that, we went through the Droid Factory, which again is very expensive. I looked at an action figure set that was $70. I looked at a play set that was $60. The robots are $100 and up, depending on upgrades. It looked pretty cool. Looked pretty neat. There's a little bit of homage to the original Star Tours where the droid baskets used to go around. And at that point, it was pretty much time for me to go. I bought a couple of bottles of Star Wars Dasani water because the Coca-Cola products, the little thermal detonator looking things, are not available yet. And then I headed out, and a guy was kind enough to cut the bag open to get my phone out. So, again, I'm very grateful to David for taking me. I had a great time with that group. Good friends from the improv days. We hung out. We made each other laugh quite a bit. Good friends. Good people. Star Wars Land itself, not a lot to do. If you have deep pockets and can buy every experience, I'm sure it's amazing. I'm not one of those people. When I was a kid, I'll tell you two quick stories. When I was a kid, my best friend's name was Carl. I still have him on Facebook. Carl Harmon was my brother from another mother guy. We hung out and we stayed at each other's houses. Carl built a tree house that we lived in one summer. Everywhere we went, we were either Luke and Han Solo or Batman and Robin. And Carl's big thing back in the day was the drinks had to match. So when we were Batman and Robin, he drank Diet Dr. Pepper because it came in a blue can, and I drank Dr. Pepper because it came in a red can, and that was our Batman colors. Carl's mother, who was a saint, made us blue milk. She took milk and she put blue food coloring in it, and we drank blue milk all day. And to me, that was blue milk. We didn't need a big corporate kitchen to concoct some lame soy-based, chunky, flowery drink to tell me that's blue milk. What they're serving is a frozen drink that they're charging a premium for. I didn't drink it, and I didn't drink it and get transported to another planet. I wasn't on Tatooine. It was a novelty at best. The green one tastes better than the blue one, but I would never really buy them. And I didn't feel like I was having a moment of living Star Wars like that. So it didn't really mesh. The other thing is, when I was old enough to have a birthday party theme that I picked, because my mother we had a pirate party once and a couple others that I remember way back when. But once Star Wars came out, that's all I ever wanted was Star Wars birthdays. Birthdays were Star Wars. The idea that you would have a birthday that was not Star Wars, completely alien to me. But if your relatives went to Toys R Us, and that's where most people went to buy birthday presents. My mom liked to shop at Kmart, but Toys R Us was the go-to place for birthday presents. In the Star Wars section, they also had other toys. They had this line of space dolls from Ideal that looked like Star Wars toys. The C-3PO was a silver robot body with a green alien head. The Darth Vader was a round-headed figure. And there was also a fake R2. And these were made to capitalize on Star Wars and to fool those people who didn't know what they were buying. So on your birthday, the people that bought you the Star Wars figures were heroes. And the aunt that got you these, they were like Zeroids or Zoids or something. The people that bought these, you hugged and said thank you. But when they left, you're like, this isn't Star Wars. This kind of looks like Star Wars, but it's not Star Wars. And that's my impression of Galaxy's Edge. It looks like Star Wars. It feels like Star Wars, but it's not my Star Wars. I ain't the demographic anymore. Younger generations are. This is made for younger generations. And that's a bitter pill to swallow. There's no walk around Luke, no walk around Darth Vader. Nothing like that. It's all new stuff except for Chewbacca. And even he didn't stop to say hello. They're going to sell this as the end-all, be-all Star Wars experience, but it's missing some key pieces. And their weird fixation on copying Harry Potter, because everything that Wizarding World of Harry Potter has, Star Wars has a counterpart. You know, they have a wand experience, we have a lightsaber experience. They have butterbeer, they have blue milk, the yada da 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 da. And the immersiveness of Wizarding World is that it takes place on a certain day. You're there on the Dragon Challenge Day of the Triwizard Cup. And that's why there's no Voldemort, because at that point, Voldemort hasn't come back from the dead yet. And J.K. Rowling was very specific. Star Wars is different. They own Star Wars. They're not buying it or leasing the property from somebody. They can do whatever they want. And why they didn't make a land with everything in it, I don't understand. This weird, no, you're at Galaxy's Edge and it's this time frame and you can't have stuff from the other time frame. That's very frustrating. Because they have a land speeder. Looks just like Luke's land speeder, except it's painted blue for some reason to make sure that you know it ain't Luke's land speeder. I mean, isn't that in a nutshell? They went to all this trouble to build a land speeder, but they painted it blue to let you know it ain't Luke's land speeder. Okay, I got it. It ain't Luke's land speeder. Thanks. I understand what you're doing. I don't have to like it, though. I'm missing those elements that would have... I mean, they don't have a TIE fighter. They have some bizarre fighter I've never seen before. Over in the Imperial part. I don't know what that is. It's some other vehicle. The toys I had as a kid do not come to life. There are no roaming robots. There's no C-3PO walking around. No R2-D2 being controlled. Stuff that I can get at Comic-Con is not there. That's a weird part. No robots. No R2 units. I mean, you can't... Remember Push, the talking trash can? They had him walking around Tomorrowland. They can't use that same business model and put R2 units? Why not? I don't understand. Again, they have them at Comic-Con, for God's sake. And don't give me that crap about being in time frame, because you know they're going to build, or they have built, an Iron Man ride. It didn't close because Iron Man died. They still have it. When DCA opens Marvel Land next year, it's going to have an Iron Man photo op. It has to. You can't go, oh, he's dead now. We can't do that. Because you know what, brother? Cruella de Vil walks around the park and she's dead. Right? These Disney villains that they kill show up and do photo ops. It doesn't matter. This hyper-real continuity thing is frustrating. And I get it. The Imagineers all wanted to say that they made their own Star Wars. I totally get it. We're going to put our stamp on it. But in doing that, I mean, it's Jeff Goldblum. You were so excited that you didn't stop to think if you should. I mean, there's so many lessons to be learned from that Jurassic Park scene, and they didn't learn any of them. They wanted their own. I get it. And when Rise of the Resistance opened, I'm sure everything's going to change because that ride's going to be phenomenal. I totally get it. But until that point, the offerings that they have are so weirdly specific and hefty priced that it puts off a guy like me. Like, I can't dance at that party. It ain't for, I ain't the demographic, and that hurts. You know, there's no Princess Leia meet and greet. There's no Luke Skywalker meet and greet. There's no, you know how at Universal you can meet Donkey? It's a puppet. They could do that here with Yoda. There's no Yoda. Yoda's dead. You can't meet Yoda. Oh, why does every other franchise get a pass? And Star Wars has to have these rigid rules. I don't get it. I'm okay with bending reality a bit. If Darth Vader wants to stand next to Kylo Ren for a photo op, no one's going to get upset. You want to hire... There's a friend of mine on Facebook who looks just like old Mark Hamill. Hire him to walk around the park. I think his name's David. It's okay to do all this stuff. No one's going to get upset. Where's the Slave Leia meet and greet? Yeah, fat chance. Where's Jabba the Hutt? They could have done all these weird trilogy things. They didn't. They did a few. Little tiny ones that they could bend and say, well, that would also be in Galaxy's Edge. That's not specific to that. Like, in front of Hondo, there's an R5-D4 unit, but according to the Star Wars lore, there's a whole army of those. It's not the R5-D4. Okay, I've ranted enough. Hey, I hope you go check it out. It is amazing. You'll have a good time. You don't have to listen to me. I'm an old curmudgeon. I told you, I ain't the demographic. I've said it a million times. Your mileage may vary. Again, massive thank you to David for taking me. I had such a good time with you guys. It was... Any criticisms I had of the land were completely undone by the company that I kept. I mean, that's it in a nutshell, right? It's about friendship. It's about hanging out. It ain't about whether you like Hondo or not. Now, I did get to see one cool thing at Disneyland that I have never seen before. If you go to the very small area between the Tarzan Treehouse and the Pirates of the Caribbean queue, way in the back there's an elevator. That elevator takes you to the Disney Suite, the Dream Suite. But just to the left of that, there is a fence. And on that fence, there is a lion. And that lion is an exact duplicate of the lion from the Lion Estates sign from Back to the Future. It was made from the same mold by the same guy, confirmed by Back to the Future guru and wizard Joe Walser. He told me it was there. I was skeptical, and I'll be damned, it's there. You can see a piece of Back to the Future, Lion Estates, the lion, in the little area between the Tarzan Treehouse and the Pirates Queue. How bitchin' is that? Very cool. And after that, when I left, I had a great time at Star Wars Night at the Angels game. It was a good time. Rachel and I had a Sunday, and we hung out with some good friends from work, and it was a great time. And it was an overload of Star Wars on last Friday. So I throw my log into the huge burning fire of Galaxy's Edge. This is my little take on it. Your mileage may vary. Check it out. I've got a few photos from their photographers that I'm going to be able to post. There it is. May the Force be with you, or the Force will be with you always. Oh, I'm exhausted. And I'm trying to remember, I had all these thoughts I wanted to give about this thing. Because, I don't usually review things. I just did. We do family roundtables where everybody can contribute and you take a break and can think about things. Oh, yeah, I need to mention that. When I do a solo show, it's all got to be there. I don't really have notes. So, there it is. Bantu, man. It's Bantu with Hondo and Blue Milk. I went in the bathroom. I went in the space bathroom, which looked just like our bathroom, except the sensors on the sink didn't work. And I waved my hands like a music conductor to try to get the water to work. And it took 4 spigots before I found one that worked. There you go. I'm critiquing the sink. Hey, I'm Jeff Tucker. This is 91 Reasons, powered by Hyperfuel.
Thanks for listening. By Gramthar's Hammer. We'll be back with another episode. Live long and prosper. May the force be with you. So say we all. Hey, hey, hey.